Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Probation Officer's Perspective. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, hit that notification bell to all, so you'll be notified of all the new content that I'm pushing out. And with that, I want to thank each and every one of you for all your support. So as you've seen in the thumbnail, is it possible? Can you get off early? If you're on paper, on parole, probation, yeah, it is possible. Every state is different. This is going to be state level only. So parole or probation, it is not federal. Federal is a total different ball game and the way they do things. So I can't speak on federal. But I've had a couple people reach out to me and ask me about, hey man, you know, I'm on probation or I'm on parole. Is it possible that I can get off early? I've even had people talk to me about that their PO was a real asshole and how can they, you know, get a different PO. And I think I covered that before in a video, but if not, we can talk about that too. So is it possible to get off paper? Well, if you're on probation, parole is a different ball game too. So I'm going to talk about felony probation. So is it possible to get off early? It is, and I encourage it. So when I was a PO, a felony PO, that's something that I always tried to push. But one of the things you got to understand is, in a lot of you, if you've been on paper before, you already know that they're all about the money. The courts are all about the money. It's a big money racket. Okay, they hit you with court costs, court fines, probation fees, restitution, whatever it is you're ordered to pay, and you got to have all that stuff paid off. So here's what the factors. Again, I'm not an attorney, so depending on what state you live in, it's going to vary. But I mean, for the most part, I think they're all pretty much probably they run the same. And I've talked to other states, other POs from other states, you know, in the past, and they're pretty much the same. It all just depends on the department. Now, so one of the things that you have to do is you got to make sure you at least have done half your time. So if you got a 3 years on paper and you're close to that 1.5 year mark, then you're good. If you got 5 years paper and you're at 2.5 years, you're good. Even earlier than that. It just depends on the person, and it depends on your actions. So how do you do it? You know, well, you ask your PO, and your PO should, like me, I encouraged it for people that were not high risk, they were low risk, because say they got put on paper, and this is what you got to keep in mind. Stay violation free, okay? From drugs, alcohol, things like that. Don't get no violations. Maybe you got a violation when you first got on paper, but it's 1.5 years later now, and you've gotten in no trouble. You're working a job, okay? You're paying on your fines, and you paid your fines and court costs. You always paid on them. Dirty urine, you didn't drop any dirty urines. You always pissed clean. You never got no trouble, you know. So those are the type of people that you like to have, because I had such a big caseload and I was intensive, so that when I had people, I had a mixture, but I was an intensive officer, so I got the worst of the worst. Now, they kept me busy. You know, a lot of them kept me busy with them, whereas I didn't have time to sit there and babysit and watch everybody all the time. There's just too many people. I tried to keep up always with my caseload, and my caseloads were always up to date. But again, if you can get somebody off your caseload that is a low risk, that hasn't done anything, who's paying on their fine, who, you know, again, when you go to get off early. Your PO should suggest it. I mean, I always do. I'm like, I'm going to put you in for an early release. Okay? I'm going to put you in for an early release. And I can't guarantee you what the judge is going to say, but I'm going to put you in for an early release. With parole, it's different because it's got to do with the parole board. With felony probation, you're dealing with the judge. Okay. Now, do you have to like file paperwork yourself for an early termination? No, you don't. You just ask your PO. Like if he hasn't already mentioned it, you ask them, hey, is there a possibility of me getting off early, get an early termination? Because I've done everything I'm supposed to do. And to me, once you've achieved everything that's in your stipulation, so if you're stipulated to go to, say, counseling, community service, whatever it is that you're stipulated to do when you get put on paper, your stipulations, and you complete those. So say you complete everything you're supposed to do in the first 6 months, and you get that out of the way, which I suggest highly, is to get everything out of the way as far as counseling. And some people have to go to counseling longer. It just depends. But say you had to do a 90-day, drug and alcohol counseling, or a 6-month. You did it. You completed it successfully. Say you had community service. You did that successfully. You haven't gotten any trouble. You haven't gotten any violations. And again, it doesn't always mean no violations, because there's a lot of people that violate right at the beginning. They might, have a violation, but a year and a half later, dude, they've done everything they're supposed to do. They'll overlook that little hiccup, especially when your PO has a lot to say, believe it or not, has a lot to do with your release. Because if the judge is a fair judge, which I've worked with asshole judges that were just straight assholes and straight about the money and corrupt as shit. And then I've worked for good judges that were understanding, and they took my word, you know what I mean? And what my, what my recommendation is. Okay. And they go by that. And that means a lot, because then you can get that early release. So if your PO hasn't asked you, mention it to him about getting an early release, early termination, whatever. Because unless it says in your stipulation that you have to do the full 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is, however long you got it, unless it says you have to complete all 5 years, no matter what, or all 3 years, that's not in your stipulations, which I didn't see that very often. Very, very, very seldom did I see that. But as long as you're doing what you're doing, I don't want you on my caseload. I want you to go be free. You know what I mean? And go enjoy your life and not have to worry about being on paper. And that's the goal, is to get people back on track, and you're working, you're taking care of your family, taking care of yourself if you don't have a family, whatever it is that you're doing, but you're staying out of trouble. And it's a very simple process. Like, all I got to do is get your jacket, your file, put it all together. Then I type up a letter for an early termination. Okay. And when I type that letter up, and then I go take it to the judge is probably going to ask me about it. Well, you know what I mean? He's either going to say yes or no. So it's not a big deal. It doesn't cost you, or it doesn't hurt to try. You know what I mean? And for me, I would ask, hey, look, such and such is doing a great job. Because, like I said, there's other people that are high risk that I'm supervising that I have to worry about, or, you know what I mean, that I have to deal with on a regular basis. So getting somebody to successfully complete early, because they're doing so well, is great. and I love to get people off, on an early termination if it's possible, and it is possible. I would say it's probably a 50-50 split, because I dealt with 2 different judges, 3 sometimes, and one judge, like I said, he was an asshole and he was all about the money, and then the other judge was not like that. So make sure your court fines are paid, your court costs are paid. If you have probation fees, those are all paid, and you paid them regularly. As far as restitution goes, that's the hard one, because they will slap. Make sure your restitution's paid if you can pay it. Now, if you can't pay it, does that still mean? Now, again, this state by state change is different. Does that mean you can't get an early termination because your restitution's not paid? It depends on how much the restitution is. Because I've seen the courts, slap somebody with a $50,000, $100,000, $150,000 restitution. Okay, and then the judge telling me when the state or the law is the max amount of time is 5 years. Max, that's it. Doesn't matter if they didn't, they can get an unsuccessful termination, but you're off paper. You're not violated. You don't go back to prison, or you don't go to prison if you've never been there. But you'll get an unsuccessful termination. It doesn't really matter unless you get in trouble again. That's not going to affect anything, because if you do get in trouble, you get an unsuccessful. The next time you try to go to get on paper, they're going to use that against you, that unsuccessful termination. But here's the thing. So, and this has happened with that asshole judge. He was always worried about the money. Like, I seriously had people that were on paper for 5 years, and it's state law. It's in the law. You cannot keep anybody more than 5 years, no matter what. So there's a lot of people I felt bad for, man, because they're doing what they're supposed to do. And here they are 4 years later, 3, 4, 5, close to 5 years, and they're still on paper and they've done great. But I can't get them off of probation because the judge wants them to pay the restitution. And I would argue with this judge. I've gotten in arguments with him because I said, the law is, and he's the judge, he knows the law. He's saying I'm not letting them off probation. And even I'm talking about, so when I let somebody off, say they got 5 years, or maybe they got 3 and they didn't pay the restitution, so he extended it another 2 years, but 5 is the max. So what I would do is, at close to the 5-year mark, I'm putting in for your termination, right? For successful. He would try to tell me that he's not going to terminate their probationer. I said, because they haven't paid their restitution. I'm like, are you shitting me, dude? Like, for real? Okay, so their restitution's $100,000, okay? They were in prison, they're a felon, or if you weren't in prison, but you're a felon, you're a convicted felon. So finding a job is hard to do. And then when you do find a job, it's not going to be like the greatest job in the world where you're making $200,000 a year. No. And so some of these guys and girls, I just said guys because it's the way I say it, but they, they're making, let's just say they're making $12 an hour, okay? And they got a family to support. But it doesn't matter if they're making $20 an hour. You cannot pay off $50,000 in 5 years. You know what I'm saying? If you made $50,000 a year before taxes and you have a family, you still cannot pay $150,000 off in 5 years. This dickhead, excuse my language, but it would not comprehend that. And then it would end up making him look stupid because then, unfortunately, the person that's on paper would have to get an attorney, and then eventually they would get off. They would get off because the 5 years is up. The judge can't hold them. just because he owes that restitution, which can be put in to a payment plan, and that can be set up through the clerk of courts instead of, and when they pay it off, they pay it off. You know what I mean? It could take 20 years to pay that shit off. Like, seriously, it makes no sense to me. It's all about money. And like I said, I've done that. I've dealt with that before. But I don't want you to not have hope. Yes, I had a very, very good rate of getting people an early termination. As long as they did at least half their time. So if they got 3 years, they did at least a year and a half. They kept their nose clean. They didn't get no new charges. Like I said, violations, no violations, working or whatever it is, you're supposed to do. No dirty urines. Now, if you had a dirty urine right at the beginning when you got put on paper or you violated something, maybe you had a violation when you first got on paper, or it was just minor. That's not going to mean, they're going to overlook that. And so I had a good success rate at that. Now, if your PO is an asshole, and hopefully you guys understand, I don't have a filter here, and I'm just talking the way I talk, cussing, whatever. But if you are, for some reason, like your PO's an asshole, he's like, I'm not getting you off early, you owe money, this, that, and the other, whatever his reasoning is, he's just an asshole and he just doesn't want to do paperwork. Okay, you can file yourself for an early termination by yourself. You don't have to get an attorney to do it. You can get the motion from the clerk of courts, file it, get a court date, and then I'm going to be there. Say if I was your PO, you're going to be there and the judge, okay? And the judge is going to ask, what my thoughts, my recommendation are for your early termination, which is kind of a stupid thing for them to make you do, because I've already went to them and said, hey, look, I put, I filled the paperwork out for the early termination and he wouldn't sign off on it. So then I tell you, sorry, man, he turned it down. Don't get discouraged, because they're still, try again. Worst they can say is no, but if your PO is not willing to go that extra mile for you, you can file it yourself. I'll be in I'm just saying me as saying I was your PO. I would be in the courtroom, and then the judge doesn't have, he's going to look stupid. He's going to look stupid when you're asking for it and you explain to him how, you've had no violations, you've worked, or, all that stuff. And then he's going to ask me, and he's going to want to see your jacket, your file. He's going to want to see everything that I have in there. He's going to look at all your terms before that to see what he, whether or not he can or does or doesn't want to do it. But I'm going to give that recommendation as long as you've, done what you're supposed to do. There's no reason why. Why keep somebody on? It's ridiculous. I understand certain people have to be on there for a certain period of time because they don't take it seriously and they're constantly violating. You know what I mean? And they end up eventually going back to prison anyways. But it's just that whole process of chasing them down, putting out warrants, going searching for them. You know what I mean? And it's just like, you have so many people that do that. When you have people that are, doing everything they're supposed to do, why not let them off? They're no longer, they're a citizen, and they're no longer a threat to the community, if that's what you want to call it. Not everybody is, but it's just a hypothetical, people think, they're a threat to the community, but they're not, because a lot of it's just stupid stuff that's, nonviolent, I should say. Now, getting off early, if you have a long rap sheet, you've been in prison several times, you violated shit, you're not going to get off early. It's just not going to happen. But if you've done things the right way and you've done what you're supposed to do, and most people can complete that their stuff in the first 6 months, whether like I said, it's counseling or whatever it is, and they can get that all drug and alcohol counseling, whatever stipulations you have, community service if you have that. I didn't see a whole lot of community service as in felony. I know in the misdemeanor courts and misdemeanor probation, they have a lot more people on probation, but they're misdemeanors, and they always would give them a shit ton of community service. Always. I didn't have to deal with that really, because with felony, they don't really give you much community service. Maybe you did, but I'm just telling you, from my experience, I didn't have that a lot. You know what I mean? So don't lose hope. Ask your PO for an early termination if it's possible. Say, look, I've been doing great. I don't have no problem. And they should want to get you off their caseload, because again, like I said, you have so many other people that are high risk that you are constantly having to deal with, that people that aren't in the way and they're doing what they're supposed to do, there's no reason for them to be on no more, no longer. It's stupid, because it's all about the money. Like I said, it's about money. But what I was saying, I always do this. I get ahead of myself. So what I'm saying is, if your PO doesn't do it, you can file your own termination for an early termination through the clerk. Get the paperwork, file the motion for an early termination. But if it gets denied by the judge, you may have to pay for an attorney the next time, depending on what the judge's reason is why he's not, going to give you an early termination. And like I said, I've seen it more and more times. It's just always about the money. And it's like, in reality, they cannot pay that restitution. You know what I mean? They cannot, if you were handing over your whole paycheck, you know what I'm saying? Every time you got paid, and it probably still wouldn't get paid off. It's stupid. But it's all about the money. That's where the corruption comes. A lot of the corruption comes in, is that money. That's all they care about. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments. Like I said, I've had people reach out to me, and I'm sorry that I took so long to get back to you, doing this video about an early termination. But if your PO's, cool, and he's, stand-up person, they should do it no problem. They can file it. Doesn't cost you a dime. They go in there and they go up to bat for you, because I did a video or content before about this, and that was about what happens behind the judge's chambers. And like I told you guys, a lot of the stuff doesn't even, before I even go into the courtroom, and say you have an attorney and the prosecutor's there, we're in the judge's chambers playing Let's Make a Deal in the background while you're sitting out there, and we already know the outcome, what the outcome's going to be, and your attorney knows the outcome when he walks out there. But he's still going to sit there and try to act like he's, arguing the fact and whatever for you, but he already knows that it's not going to happen, or it is going to happen. But a lot of things, so on an early release, more than likely, I'm going to send that paper up. The judge is going to, if I get that chance where he's available, I will go in there and speak with him. If he's not available, I'll put it in his box. When he gets it, he will call me to his chambers, and then it'll just be him and I, and they're talking. He'll ask about that. I bring your file. Why do you want to, think that they deserve to be released early? Well, because they're doing everything they've done everything they were supposed to do. At this point, it's kind of, there's no purpose, because they've done everything they're supposed to do. They abide by all the rules. They're not in, they're not in the way. So why have them here? But yes, it is very possible to do. And I hope this video helped you out. Again, if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. As I always say, my email and phone number are in my channel description. feel free to reach out. Others have reached out by email mostly. I've had a few by phone, but reach out. That's why I put that there. I put my contact information for people to reach out to me. So that way, I can help people out. I mean, I wish some of these other content creators, instead of getting on, YouTube would, instead of doing the videos about somebody, they'd be a man and just reach out, because all my info's there. Now, these other cats, they will hide all their information. They don't give you any information. You can't get a hold of them. You know what I mean? Unless you know them personally, or somebody that has maybe their email address or some information. But other than that, they don't do it. They're not transparent. I'm transparent. My email address is there. My phone number is there. You can text it, call it. You can shoot me an email. Shoot me an email is probably the best thing. If you do call, I don't answer. There's a reason for that. I don't, just like you probably don't do it. I don't answer numbers I don't know. So shoot a text, first, and be like, hey, look, this is so-and-so, and I just have some questions. Do you have time? I'm always open to talking and trying to help people and give advice. But yeah, so when it comes to that, it's very possible. Hopefully your PO's on board with that too, and we can get you off early. Instead of waiting it out because of the money and whatnot. With that, we'll see you on the next one. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that notification bell to all. And I'll be dropping another video regarding the probation and just the whole, because there's a lot of videos I did at the very beginning when I started my channel that I didn't have the subscriber base. So a lot of people didn't get to see it or haven't seen them. And I want to redo them anyways, because they were just, from a long time ago. But anyways, with that, I will see you on the next one. Peace out.